Unedited with Cameron Strang is brought to you by World Vision's upcoming Global 6K for Water. It's a one-day event on May 4th where people from all over the world walk and run 6K in their own neighborhoods to bring lasting clean water to children in need. Find out more and sign up at worldvision6k.org.
I'm Cameron Strang, and welcome to Unedited. My guest today is rapper and producer Andy Mineo. Andy's had a slew of Billboard charting records and sold-out tours across the U.S. and Europe. His colossal hit song, You Can't Stop Me, not only won an ESPN Whammy Award for Major League Baseball's top walk-up song, but it also went gold. His most recent project is a 4-chapter EP that, taken together, will culminate into his third LP. So far, he's released the first 2 chapters, The Arrow and The Sword. Before that, he dropped an album with words played called Magic and Bird. I love that one because it's dripping with basketball references. When Andy came through the Relevant studio last week, he was on the last leg of the huge Unashamed Forever tour with the whole Reach Records crew that he's part of. Lecrae, KB, Tedashii, Trip Lee, and others. We talked about his story coming up in Syracuse, New York, how he got his break in music, and as a self-professed sneakerhead, what he thinks about the Preachers and Sneakers Instagram account that's been getting attention the last few weeks. You don't want to miss what he has to say. Well, without any further ado, here is my conversation with Andy Mineo, unedited.
Coming in hot, just like the fajita. I write what I live, my life in the speaker. I'm nice with the flow, just like the demeanor. I'm feeding my fam, I'm feeding the meter. They got the iron while I got the steamer. I bring the fire, but you never seen her. I testify, I don't need a subpoena. They want my soul, better go to Korea. I love my dog, just like I'm Peter.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yo,
dude,
I'm excited.
It's been a long time coming. Tell us about the tour. This is a huge tour, Unashamed, that you guys are doing.
Well, you know, we did this tour a bunch, like in the past. Unashamed tour was basically a Reach Records label tour.
Right.
And we did, we started off doing it and then we did it consecutively, and then we were like, let's leverage the momentum that we have to go like do something besides just put on a tour. So we went to Africa and we hit like a particular window in Africa for 2 weeks that just is completely underserved, and basically like did it for free essentially.
Wow.
That was in 2012, I think. And then 2013, we did Unashamed Lockdown, where the tour just only went through federal prisons. And so we went to New York prisons, LA prisons, LA County, all that stuff. And we would put on shows there. And then we did it, so we did a few. And then everybody, essentially, there was like a season in time when everyone was like, all right, we're going to just build our own careers outside of this like collective unit. Mm-hmm. And so everyone went off. So for the last 5 years, people didn't tour together like that. And we were just like, yo, I think there's still a demand for this. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of a thing that people miss in like the unity. Like they miss that, like, yo, I want to see all the guys together again. Because we came out in such a cliquey way,
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, let's see if there's still momentum there, if people still want this. We put it up, and I think every show sold out besides like 1 or 2. But,
that's crazy.
So it's just doing really well, man. And I think the guys are reinvigorated, excited again to be like, all right, we have the voice of a culture. We have momentum. Why don't we use this for good and see how we can leverage it? And so we're thinking through a lot of that stuff now, like what it could be.
Like beyond even just this tour?
Yeah, maybe like make it annual.
Nice.
Maybe throw in a conference or something, like some sort of like Super Bowl of like faith and culture together that like that could feed into each other.
Yeah.
And just kind of, we have so many relationships that it's like, what if we wire this thing together? Like, what if it turns into like, I don't know, a festival or something, or like, it's not just these artists from the label, but other people who have been demonstrating and being vocal about their faith, but aren't in that.
Dude, sign us up. Get Relevant involved. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
It'd be tight. Like,
there's a need for something
like
that.
Tori Kelly, Chance the Rapper, Justin Bieber, like these guys we have relationships with and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why don't y'all come for the weekend for the festival and make it like, because there's nothing like that.
Right. You could have Kanye's Sunday morning thing.
Do Kanye's Sunday morning thing, have it come. Like, I just think it would be, I think it, because people are more, I think, open to exploring and talking about faith now than ever, because it was so like under wraps for such a long time.
Right. Why is that?
Well, one, kind of the way I've noticed artwork like in like a cyclical thing. It's the same thing with fashion. Like fashion goes in circles. It has times when stuff isn't cool. Now it is cool, or it takes certain people to make it cool. And it comes all around over and over again. It's kind of like that with art. It's like whatever the least cool thing is, that's what's probably going to come next. You just got to give it time. Example, Old Town Road, this song, which is a country rap song. It's like, it was a matter of time before the least cool thing would be brought to the front. And that's the way trends and all that stuff work anyway. So I don't know. I also think, so faith was like a super uncool thing for a long time. And then I think guys in the spotlight go, I'm going to highlight this and kind of make it cool or make it more mainstay in the conversation. And I genuinely think like that we live in such a world that is so, what do you call it? Like almost like anti-faith that like, I think people just kind of got sick of it.
Yeah.
And people were like, no, there's gotta be more than like Instagram and fame and money and these things. And I think people start exploring those things, a lot more because as much as we have, it's insane to see how much American people have, but how little they are satisfied. And I think we're getting to like a self-implosion point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's interesting if you guys pull off that festival idea where it's like you guys and go get some of the, Chance and Bieber and all that too. You won't get pushback from their fans, but y'all will get pushback from Christian hip hop fans, don't you think?
Sure, some of them. It's nice to know that things have evolved over the years.
Yeah.
Like,
because it used to be hardcore us versus them almost.
Absolutely.
Christian hip hop versus sellout hip hop.
Yeah. And it was a very much like rah-rah, self-righteous, kind of like loud, boisterous thing. That was very, I think, pharisaical in a lot of ways. Like, we're right, you're wrong, and built a lot more barriers than we did bridges in the earlier years. But, I think over time, people have understood our position and what's going on. And you start doing collaborations with guys outside of your space and people understand what's going on. They're like, oh, there's an intentionality to that. And I think people have just warmed up to it more over the years.
It's interesting. I mean, we've seen the shift too. I mean, when we started Relevant, it's back in 2003 was our first issue. And the divide versus the sacred and the secular was immense. And I'm like, it's not real life. I mean, like, we're going to church on Sunday and we're listening to the radio. I mean, why can't we talk about this?
Yeah.
Our generation didn't shop in Christian bookstores and stuff. And it's just like, it seemed like we didn't belong in either camp or whatever, strong about our faith, but we're engaging culture. We're discerning. Why can't we talk about it? I think it's interesting now. That's not as much of a divide or an issue,
It's just like anything. With time, people come around to realize how ridiculous some of these things are. Like, I didn't know that like Sam Cooke and some of these other guys who have like these incredibly inspiring songs were being crucified in that era because they were too worldly.
Aretha Franklin grew up in the church, and when she decided to sing the devil's music, the church turned their back on her.
And you listen to that music now and you're like, what were y'all mad about?
For real.
You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all are mad about RESPCT, like, respect me as like a powerful woman. They're like, oh, how dare you say those things? You're like, what? So I think that's kind of what we had to realize as our place in history is in a few years, people will probably laugh at the ridicule we've endured for just doing things like making a song with Ty Dolla $ign called Blessings and just being grateful for the blessings that God has given you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how dare you? And you're like,
literally
what?
Played in the car on the way here. I picked up my son from school and his buddy, and I just had on the hip hop station and Blessings was on.
Yeah.
And the kid in the backseat goes, did you put on the Christian hip hop station? I was like, no, dude, that's just the hip hop station. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Lecrae's on mainstream hip hop.
Right.
And And the kid goes, this was the first music video I ever saw. Like I saw 2 years ago, whatever. And I go, I'm in that music video by accident. Literally, I'm in that music video. The whole premise was a family reunion at the house. And if you look, there's this white dude on the porch talking to Prop the whole time. And it's me. I was just there hanging out with Prop, and I ended up in the Ty Dolla $ign video. I'm like, well, there you go.
You're royalty, bro.
I'm royalty. And which the kid didn't believe me. I showed him a picture, and then they just made fun of me the whole time. So the white guy at the family reunion. So tell me about, you grew up in Syracuse. Tell me what that was like. Tell me about life growing up.
Growing up in Syracuse is very like blue collar, very small city. You know what I'm saying? Basically, the biggest thing we have going on there is the Syracuse Orangemen. So, athletics, like college athletics, and the Carousel Mall, which is now Destiny USA, which was supposed to be like the savior of Syracuse. An enormous mall that was
like Mall of America?
Okay. I think it might be bigger than Mall of America now. Or Mall of America expanded to try to keep the title of biggest mall.
No way.
Because Destiny USA was coming for it. Lo and behold, it is an enormous mall, but it did not move the needle for Syracuse because it just created a bunch of really low-paying jobs, right? Just more low-paying jobs. And there's no excitement from New York City and all these other areas that they thought it would be to like, people are going to bus in and like, take the coach train up to spend the day at there. So anyways, it's a pretty poor city economically. It's very, very mixed city. Like, so I went to Henniger High School, and I think I was the only white kid on my basketball team. I was one of 3 kids on the football team that were white. And so, it's an urban inner city. And then it has like most cities, suburbs and a lot of divide there. But it's an underserved city, and there's a lot of creativity there. A lot of creativity there, especially because of the college. And then there's just a lot of really great artists who hone their craft, but they really don't have any outlets for their craft. And so there's just like a lot of talent just sitting around that just really goes unrecognized. And so I knew when I graduated high school, I was like, I'm leaving this city. I'm going straight to New York City. I wanted to be there. And, I was able to take all that time and energy and my 10,000 hours and go to a place where there's a little bit more opportunity.
So you honed your craft in high school though? I mean, you knew this is what you wanted to do.
I did. I started off, me and my best friend Ryan, like basically hacked some computer programs, took some computer microphones you could buy from Best Buy and started to record ourselves on like Cool Edit, Fruity Loops, all these things.
Yeah.
And then I started saving birthday and Christmas money to buy better microphones, better speakers. And before you knew it, I was like 13, 14 years old. And I built a little studio in my apartment with birthday, Christmas money. And a kid was like, yo, can you record me? I'll give you $10 an hour. And I started recording him, and then the word spread. And before you know it, I'm 16, 17 years old running a studio for $30 an hour out of my mom's basement. Rebuilt a studio down there. And I did that all through high school, made tons of money and reinvested in myself. So all those hours, I'd get out of school, I'd get out of football practice, I'd come home and I'd record people for like 6 hours. So engineering, mixing, recording, writing raps, doing my own stuff all through high school. And then I went to college for it. And then all through college, I was doing the same thing. I was turning my class projects into my personal projects and, just honing it.
People kind of, I think they have this like idea of like their big break or whatever. Like they just like, they're going to get handed a free pass or you get the opportunity. Just like, here's a contract. It's like, no, you started when you were 13, crawl, walk, run. You just kind of keep hustling.
Absolutely.
That's what everybody needs to do. Yes. I mean, if you got a dream to do something, then put one foot, you want to run a marathon, take one step, get going, don't wait
10 years.
Don't wait for an invitation,
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah. And honestly, like I was bad. Like I look back and I listen, I was like, yo,
dude, everybody's bad when they start.
Writer. Yeah. But then it's so discouraging because you see people on Instagram or wherever and they're so good at something and you're just like, how come I can't be that good in a week, And people get discouraged and they tap out. But it takes a lot of time.
But back then we didn't have access to, I think Instagram, I think social media is, it causes so much like anxiety,
Absolutely.
depression from, comparison and like, I'm not as pretty as, or I'm not as rich as, or I'm not as talented as.
Yep.
And your feed is all these people who you can't keep up with. And then you feel bad about yourself, but God's given each of us something that's unique. And I feel like that comparison trap holds a lot of people back,
1,000,000%. That's what the song I Ain't Done that I made off my project, The Arrow, that came out last year.
Just came out of the winter. Just came out.
I was dealing with anxiety and depression in a way I never, like I had a mental, like a snap. And I think I'm realizing like social media is going to be the cigarettes of 20 years from now, or the porn of 20 years from now. Where when it came out, everyone was like, look at this great thing. People were smoking cigarettes everywhere, bro. Like they were on, like, I remember looking at a magazine, like an old magazine. It was like a guy playing baseball with his son, smoking a cigarette and like holding his kid with the cigarette around.
Yeah.
It was just like, this is it. This is cool. And then you're like, oh, by the way, 20 years later, we found out it's killing everybody.
I literally was listening today. Today is the 60-year anniversary of when they announced the Mercury 7, the 7 astronauts that were going to go to the moon, right? And the press conference where they introduced the 7 guys, 4 of them were smoking. And one of the reporters asked, like, what are they going to do up in space if they can't like sit through a press conference without smoking, But I mean, that's how different, how times change. Yeah.
And we're like, oh, we're giving our kids phones, letting them have screen time for 6 hours a day. And nobody thinks anything of it. It's like, oh, your whole kid's brain has been rewired. We don't find that out till later. I feel like, or porn, same thing with that is like, it's always been what's it called? Taboo. But now we're finding out the effects of it. It's like really messing up people's brain, like it's rewiring their brain. So I kind of feel like social media is going to be doing that. I watched like a video the other day of some of the guys who helped curate and create Facebook feeds, like the way that it keeps on giving you new content every time you swipe up, and the way they organize that to mimic what happens in a casino where you lose track of time and you get kind of locked in. And the guys who helped create that are like, I don't use it at all. I carry around a ton of guilt because of this. Like, this is tearing apart the fabric of our society. You're like, what? This is deep.
I was listening to, it was like 2-3 weeks ago, and it was NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was being interviewed by Bill Simmons. And
Humble flex.
And Adam Silver was saying that, he's been in the NBA 30 years, and he said this generation of players are legitimately like, they have issues with anxiety and depression in a way that he's never seen before. And he attached it to social media.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
I don't doubt that for half a second. There's never been such a direct correlation between anxiety and depression and the rise of social media. Like, the writing's on the wall, in my opinion. And it's weird because it seems like a necessary evil. Like, I'm an artist. I benefit off the fact that people are on social media and I get to share information with them like that. Before, I needed a big label. I needed a marketing company. I needed magazines. I needed the inroads and the gatekeepers to let me in. Now I can do that because of social media. I can connect with them. So there's tremendous good from it. But even on my phone, bro, I got the timed lock screen thing. Like, yo, I set an hour a day. And every single day I'm hitting that, like, yo, you hit the limit. I'm like, wow.
That's smart.
I have to try to put limits on myself because I know I'll just waste my brain away.
Healthy boundaries, man.
I'm taking a dump and 2 hours later,
That's a long dump.
Wiped. I'm locked in, dog. I'm in there.
I'ma run up the scope. Run it up. Yeah, run up the scope. I'ma need a few more. Yeah, and I'm talking about 25, 25, 25, ayy. 35, 35, 35, ayy. Can't stop, gotta be great. Ain't nobody safe, might run up the scope.
Where'd you love of basketball come from?
My love for basketball came from playing as a kid.
Yeah.
And One mixtapes were big at the time.
Who was your guy?
The Professor. Already know. Hot Sauce was big at the time.
Skip to My Lou.
So I was just watching those and emulating at the basketball court. And honestly, I think that's, if someone would ask me, hey, you have an hour to do anything you want to do, put me on a basketball court.
For real.
It's like my birthday, my bachelor party, I was like, make sure we get a gym. I want to play ball. It's just my favorite thing in the world, man.
Do you, when you're on the road, how do you just like hotels? I mean, like, how do you stay?
Yeah, no.
playing?
When we're on the road, a lot of the venues have had basketball courts or, YMCA's down the road and stuff. So we get some guys together and go shoot. You see it on my Instagram. They're over there. But love basketball. And, it's something that you can just pick up anywhere. It's worldwide. You bring a ball and you go to a court anywhere and you can connect with people and have fun. There's an unspoken language. There's an unspoken communication, cutting, picking, rolling. If you know the fundamentals, you get in a rhythm with people. It's a beautiful game. And I'm also very in love with sneakers and like the actual craft of sneaker making, design, how technology and fabrics and rubbers are intentionally and thoughtfully crafted in a way to support an athlete and their movements. Like, I really think sneaker stores are the art gallery for the poor. Like, you walk in and you see all these beautiful pieces of art displayed and showcased on a wall, and you can pick it up and touch it and look at it and pull the fabrics and know that these were designed and colored and created by really brilliant people. And so my love for sneakers is like a weird thing. It's not just a vanity, but it's like an actual art form.
I'm the same way. I've loved sneakers forever. And then, have you seen the Instagram account Preachers and Sneakers?
Oh, brother.
That's changing the conversation a little bit.
Boy, yeah, I've been getting some, because I know a lot of those guys.
Me
and
too.
Personal friends.
Dude, I was talking to Carl Lentz all day today about it. I mean, like.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Tell me what Carl Lentz is saying about Preachers and Sneakers, because he's getting roasted on there.
Carl and I
right?
were talking. We've talked
at him
for about the last week nonstop about it. And today he talked to the dude behind the account.
Okay.
And he was telling me about the conversation.
What was the dude's thing behind the account? He just was.
So he's like up for
commentary?
He's like, yeah. I mean, he's young. His wife works for a church, and so he's a sneakerhead. And so he started to just notice it because sneakerheads notice sneakers.
Oh yeah.
And he knew what his wife made, and he was just like, huh. And so he threw the account up a couple weeks ago as a joke with his buddies, and it just took off, right? And now he is, I mean, he's in over his head. I mean, Today Show called him. I mean, like national media like crazy. New York Times just hit me up about it. It's crazy. And so Carl, to his credit, Carl immediately like wanted to talk to Jamie Torkowski is a buddy of mine. He leads an organization called To Write Love on Arms. He's been kind of like vocal.
He's been bashing them, not bashing. Let me say that. He's been vocal about like, y'all are wrong for this.
I had Jamie's a buddy, and Jamie's a sneakerhead too. Like, we go to Magic games and he's sitting there like, pointing out like every single, And so we had Jamie on the podcast. We had Prop on the podcast, and we talked about it just from an outsider's perspective. Well, I got Carl and Jamie in touch with each other because I wanted them to talk. And then Carl got in touch with the dude behind the account too. Carl's on one hand listening, and on the other hand, like, who are you to judge?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so Carl's perspective, I'm not going to, say on podcast what he said. I won't put words in his mouth, but he has a interesting perspective on it. I mean, he's kind of going, where's the line? I mean, you can't judge the heart. And
that's where it gets sticky.
It's like, you went to Red Lobster? Well, you could have gone to Taco Bell and given the money to the poor. Mm-hmm. So who are you to say that? You know what I mean? So like,
absolutely. It's messy.
It's messy.
But I will say this, because I've been talking about it on tour with the guys. So if y'all don't know, this is an account that, shows preachers, like famous preachers, and then the sneakers that they're wearing and how much those sneakers cost at resale value.
Which is that is totally misleading.
Which is very misleading because these sneakers could be $200 and they could resell for $1,100, $1,200, whatever, which is very common, $5,000 even. So we've been talking about it, and I said, okay, but there is a point when you can say, all right, the guy who likes the $40 Skechers or whatever, he thinks the $200 Jordan, or like this sneaker right here, $180. And I think I got these for free. I have whatever. I was gifted these.
Right.
That guy thinks I'm a lunatic for owning this $200 pair of shoes, right? Because he's like, yo, $40 Skechers, what more do you need?
Mm-hmm.
the kid who's getting the free Tom shoes in a poor, underserved community and country is like, how do y'all got $40 shoes? Right? The guy who's wearing the $1,500 shoe, you know, that's the resale value, is looking at the guy with Giuseppe's or whatever. And he's like, how y'all paid $15,000 for those shoes? And it becomes a very, you know, subjective thing. But I will say that at a certain point, you objectively, everyone says that's an expensive pair of shoes, right? So you have to ask that question, like, where is the line?
I want to remind you that this episode of Unedited is brought to you by World Vision and their upcoming Global 6K for Water. It's a one-day event on May 4th where people from all over the world walk and run 6K in their own neighborhoods to bring lasting clean water to children in need. Not many people know this, but World Vision is the #1 provider of clean water in Africa. So there's no better organization to get behind, and this is a perfect event to help raise money to make a difference. Why is it 6K? 6 kilometers is the average distance women and kids in the developing world walk for clean water. Every step you take is one they'll no longer have to. The event takes place on May 4th. The whole Relevant team is running it, and we love for you to run it with us. Now, you don't have to be athletic. Everyone can participate. Whether you're in Los Angeles, Dallas, Minneapolis, or anywhere else in the country, you can find a group to join or even host your own group, like the Relevant staff is doing here in Orlando. Search for groups in your area or find out how to host your own at worldvision6k.org. Sign up today. Now, back to the conversation. Here's Andy Mineo. You're a rap artist.
Yeah.
That's different than a pastor.
That's true.
A messenger of the gospel.
That's true.
In a way that, like, I think, and Carl told me this. He said, hey, listen, we can all agree optics matter. You know, we need to, you know, behind the scenes, he goes, I call guys out all the time. Like, dude, why are you flossing that Gucci belt and why are you wearing that? That's ridiculous. Come on, man. You look ridiculous. And he's like, optics do matter. And if you're on stage, you need to be aware of what you are saying non-verbally,
yeah.
You know what I mean? About what you value and things like that. And he's like, so yeah, I mean, course correction in that respect, this is healthy, but public shaming is not healthy. You know, literally creating things to cast stones and incite a cynicism is a difficult position to be into.
But would those people have listened if this account didn't grow up?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Then it's like, now you got to deal with it because it's here,
Right.
as opposed to would it have been dealt with if it didn't.
And it's exposing the hard issues.
Yes.
Who's humble? Who's listening? Who's going to put their foot down and pride and both, you know?
You know, so I know like Rich Wilkerson.
Right.
Like that's a buddy of mine. Like I love that dude. Like genuinely an incredible guy.
Right.
Like hang out with him. Like I just love you.
Right.
And we get to talk, you know, because we have mutual friends, like some like really like famous friends or whatever. Like, yo, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know how to do some of these things because one part of you just wants to be like, yo, get your crap together. But the other part is like, you want to be gentle and patient with people as they're growing and going through their stuff and learning. And then you get caught in the middle by being friends with them or whatever the case is. So, you know, a lot of people deal with this who do big public things like Kirk Franklin. He came out to the show in Texas the other day in Dallas and we were just hanging backstage and I got to talk a whole bunch about like just this Kanye situation that, you know, he's cool with dude. They worked on music together and he gets a chance to be an influence in his life. But if you don't know the whole story, people just make one up. And so, you know, the whole story, you just make one up and stuff gets made up. And then what are you going to do? You're going to run to the media and defend yourself and then put your relationship with that person on the line. You know, so it's just a sticky thing, man. And I know Rich well, to get back to that, it's like, I know this dude is getting free stuff. Like that dude lives on a humble, like a humble salary, but just because of the people who love him and say, thank you so much for the work that you do. And I feel so blessed. Let me bless you. And they give him sneakers, you know, clothes. He's not out there buying that stuff. 90% of that stuff is given to him.
That's the thing that, you know, when we were talking on the podcast, it was kind of like, what are we offended about the public? What is the public offended about? That these pastors are spending church money on this stuff? Well, then, okay, that's, you're looking at resale. If he bought it, it's $150. maybe he was gifted it. Is it okay if he was gifted it? Because I can look at the feed and 90% of them were gifted. I mean, I know it.
I know
Right.
for sure.
Right.
He's friends with Jerry Lorenzo.
Right.
He sends him
All the fear of God stuff.
Fear of God. And that stuff is
on that feed.
wildly
Any fear of
expensive.
God was gifted. Any fear of God was gifted. Any Saint Laurent was gifted. I don't know about all the off-whites. I don't know about Virgil. I don't know if he's gifted.
Yep.
But also the other thing.
Sometimes it's people in the congregation.
That's right.
Or they're just like, hey, I know you like
They want to
sneakers
bless
into
the man of
fashion.
God.
Let me give this to you. I love what you do. I know you. Bro, we showed up at a meet and greet yesterday, and a kid pulled up and he pulled out some Bugs Bunnies, some some
Right.
Jordans, and was like, "Who's a 9.5? I just want to gift them to you because y'all music means the world to me."
Yeah. That's the question. Are we upset about the money, the flashiness, the thing? What is it? And if you read the comments, which don't because they're crazy, it's all
Get
the
some
above.
popcorn, my friend.
It's all the above. It's like people are saying, if a minister is wearing anything other than a black robe and a collar, they're sinning. It's materialistic.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, they should sell them and give the money to the poor. They should, everybody has an opinion and they're judging the people based on a perception versus knowing them or knowing their heart.
And my hope is that you would have just as much anger or like relentlessness towards the own crap you need to deal with in your life.
Come on.
In your life. That's my biggest thing. It's
Plank
like,
in the eye.
if you want to dump on anybody else, then you should be just as eager to do that to yourself, but you're not, because anyone who is actually course correcting themselves would know that this is a hard life to live, to be faithful and to be true. So why would I get on anybody else for trying to navigate that as well? And so it is I'm glad that the conversation is at least happening.
Absolutely.
That's what these things in culture do.
That's
Is they
right.
bring us to talk about them. But there's usually not a consistency, in the criticism.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
For
the
themselves.
issue to me is like, this raises the issue of I can look at you, and since your reality
Public.
is different than mine, I can judge yours. But all of us, whether you're a college kid making $10,000 working minimum wage part-time, or you make $1 million a year as a CEO, all of us have margin and impact that we could spend on others, that we could. So this, to me, the good of this conversation is let's all step back and hold the mirror up to ourselves.
Yeah.
And let's kind of realign our own lives before we publicly shame other believers as well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the trickiest part of it is what you said. It's just that it's a hard thing, bro. Like, once you get into that territory, you have to deal with the fact that you are now judging people's hearts and motives, which is impossible to do. And, my buddy said it to me one time, and I just agree with it. It's like, when you try to expose other people, you expose yourself. You really show who you are in your attempts to try to show who other people are. And so that's just a fine line to walk.
That's what Carl, like when he reached out to the guy behind the account, he was like, he's a sweetheart. Like, he's a kid who just like, was just asking a question, and then he got swept up in all this. Yeah. But he's a sweetheart, and he's like, God's got something for him. He's going to change the world. Like, you know what I mean? He was like affirming, and he was like building the guy up and stuff. And hopefully, I hope what this ultimately does is not divide the church, but hopefully will expose heart issues to hopefully strengthen the church. Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, that's a hope.
It's a hope. It's not happening yet, but we'll hopefully
we got
get there.
bad PR a lot of times. Really bad PR.
How do you handle that though? Like, how do you handle being up on stage and, you being a public figure, people know your social media. They don't know you, but they judge. They judge you based on your art. They judge you based on your style. They judge you based on whatever you put out there. How do you handle that?
I don't know if human beings, were meant to get this amount of praise or criticism. I just don't think our brains are hardwired to receive that much praise or criticism. And I think what ends up happening is when you're receiving that many comments, that many likes, that many DMs, messages, blah, 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 people want your attention, XYZ, you either need to reject it to maintain a normal, or it needs to become your new normal. And in becoming your new normal, you can kind of go nuts. You know what I'm saying? So like the new normal is everybody can reach out to me. And I, depending on how I deal with it internally, I feel a sense of obligation or guilt that I have to respond, or whatever. And so that can, if it becomes your new normal, it can drive you nuts. I watched this Whitney Houston documentary yesterday and it was insane. I recommend you watch it. There was a moment in there where they talked about you have to decide whether or not your artist self is an extension of who you really are, or if you are just an extension of who your artist self is. Right? Like, and I think that is a very sobering question. Am I, Andy, the people who know me outside of music, is who I am as a person extension of my public persona? Or is it the other way around? Which I think it should be. Because when your identity gets rooted in the public persona, you literally lose who you are. And you become a performance-based individual because now your net worth or your market value becomes your value. And the reality is, as an artist, I'm making product and that product has value on it. I go to this market and I'm worth 2,000 tickets. Drake goes to this market and he's worth 60,000 tickets, right? We literally have a different value. But as human beings, we don't have a different value. As our personhood, I'm made in the image of God and I'm valuable and so are you. And therefore we are on an even playing field. But when it comes to us being these products, we do have different value. So if you put yourself in that shoe as your primary identity, then all you can do is compare and feel bad and feel less than. And it's a never-ending game, bro. So it's a tricky thing to navigate, to separate those things and try to remember what's most important. And a really cruel thing about wanting the love of the world is that it will turn on you so quick. Just think about how beloved and praised all of these people were, these artists. And the moment that they do something wrong or they make a mistake publicly, they are shattered. SNL's making skits about you. They're laughing at you. They're instead of using, like when Whitney Houston had a drug addiction and an issue and she's public about it and everyone sees what's going on, nobody's reaching out to help. They're finding out, oh man, this is going to be a great story for our magazine. This is going to be a great sketch for SNL. You're literally using time, effort, energy, and money to laugh at people. And it's because they're a big target. And I'm like, this is such a cruel and messed up world that to long and live your life to perform for the approval of this world is so frivolous and empty because it literally will hate you the moment that you mess up and criticize you and take advantage of your low moments. So it's a weird thing. Like as I deal with how to process and work with that public persona being scrutinized or praised, I have to work through it with people like my wife who like really keep me grounded. She's like, I don't care about none of that. Use it, leverage it for what we need to, you know what I'm saying? But Andy, you got to stay intact as a human and recognize that this artist extension is just an extension of who you are. Don't let it be the other way around.
So last question, why do you keep doing it?
Why do you music?
Yeah, why do you keep living a public life like that?
Yeah. Well, some of it is now it's handed to me. Not handed to me, it's inescapable. So I go out to dinner, I show up somewhere, like sat down to have dinner yesterday and I got stopped 3 times for pictures. That's not in my control. You know what I'm saying? Like it happened. I'm public. The guy came over, he paid for my meal. And I was like, this is great. There's a lot of perks, a lot of benefits to it as well. But it has become a bit of a new normal for me. Like, okay, I'm a public figure. And now I just need to decide how I'm going to utilize that or leverage that, And you can utilize it for selfish gain, or you can try to utilize it for the good of other people. Use it as a platform to bring new people on, like my boy Words played. I have this platform and I did a collab album with him and he just got out the Navy and now everyone knows who he is. You know what I'm saying? And he's getting to be an artist full time. And I'm glad I was able to do that for him. Start a label. I was able to employ some of my best friends. I work with my best friends and give them good salaries. And, there's a lot of good. But also because I just love being an artist, and this is some of the territory that it comes with, you know what I'm saying? to be an artist. You want your music, people to buy your music and for it to pay for you to not have to work a 9 to 5, but focus on making art. Then it needs to be bought and purchased in front of enough people that they're also going to recognize you and make your life a little different.
Oh, I'm glad you're doing it, man. I'm a fan. I'm glad you're out there making it.
Thanks, man.
And thanks for being honest. Thanks for opening up with everybody. Because, like, you know, I think whether you're a fan of somebody or you're mocking them, their sneakers on an Instagram account, it's hard to remember sometimes that there's real people on the other side of that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, well, cool. Go check out the tour, everybody.
Yeah.
Unashamed.
I tried to point them to the sun, but why they calling me a star? Who would've thought we set their minds free with these bars? In this game, in this biz, want the fame, won't get rich, comfort, everybody wanting it. Never knew I could be lost in this. This my sophomore, gotta go hard when the show over, no encore. I got enough, but I want more, want more. Nobody told me you could die like this. Nobody told me you could die.
That was Andy Mineo. Make sure to check out his 4-chapter EP project. The first 2 installments, The Arrow and The Sword, are out now. Hey, if you like this episode of Unedited, I'd love your help spreading word about the show. Subscribing, rating, and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts helps a ton, as well as sharing it on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to Relevant Magazine. We're running a great deal right now at relevantmagazine.com/subscribe. Don't miss our next episode of Unedited when I'm joined by Jamie Torkowski, founder of the mental health nonprofit To Write Love on Our Arms. Thanks for listening. I'm Cameron Strang. I'll see you next time here on Unedited.
Relevant Podcast Network.